All right. Well, Becca Hatch, thanks so much for joining us on Homebrewed.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you on because you've got a bit coming on here on the Central Coast and up in Newcastle over the coming weeks, which we'll get to. But let's start. We do have you up here on the Central Coast this weekend for Love Lanes Festival up in Wyong. What are your expectations or thoughts on that one? I can't
I
imagine you would have played
never,
too much in Wyong.
no, I've literally never been to Wyong. It would just be my first time visiting, which is going to be cool. So yeah, I'm so excited to be there. The lineup seems really sick, and yeah, I mean, I always like love doing like community festivals when you get to go out and like, I don't know, I feel like it's a time where you get to explore a new town that you haven't been to, and I feel like as I don't know, like living in Australia, there's so many like beautiful towns and just like places that I feel like we don't always go to and like visit because we're from here. So yeah, I feel like I'm gonna be like little tourists in Wyong, so it's gonna be cool.
There's
Yeah,
it's a smallish town. I work in Wyong, so I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
I'm qualified to speak on behalf of the town.
Cam's the mayor.
Fairly, I'm not the mayor, far from it, but it's a fairly small town. It's where the council building is, if that's sort of yeah.
okay, nice. Let's go.
As soon as you finish your set, just go marvel at the council building.
When that's where I'm
Nice.
starting. But no, there's some cool cafes and a couple of cultural places, and there's an old heritage place, like sort of old homestead,
Yeah,
sort of a
cool.
couple of minutes out of the town centre. But where you'll be performing at Love Lanes, you get like 15,000 people sort of roll throughout the afternoon and evening. It's a pretty cool
Awesome.
event. They close all the streets and lanes around it. Obviously, day after Valentine's Day as well. There's food stalls. It is actually a pretty cool, local event put on by council.
Yeah, sick. Well, I'm actually really looking forward to it. So it's gonna be good. Let's go.
Yes, so everybody make sure you get along to that. It's been around, I don't know, I want to say like maybe not even 10 years now, Love Lanes, but it is a really cool community event. And I would say, Becca, for an artist of your stature, it's a great get for Wyong Love Lanes. So it'll
Oh,
be an honor
okay.
to have you
Well, thank
performing in our
you. What the
area.
heck?
And like I feel like previous acts have maybe like just we haven't had someone that makes music like yours come and play that event. So I'm very much looking forward to that. That's really, really cool. And Wyong is not the only regional area you're going to be hopping along to. And part of why we also
Yeah.
wanted to chat to you was about the regional sessions, which is run by APRA AMCOS. It's regional
Yeah.
events all around New South Wales. And it's going to have people like yourself, people involved in the music industry, some really great Aussie musicians there that are basically aiming to bring connection and songwriting skills to those areas. So tell us a little bit about that, because I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, so APRA are running these regional sessions, as you said. Yeah, basically they reached out and asked if I'd be keen to go to Newcastle. I've like spent a little bit of time in Newcastle, but my background being from Campbelltown, like a small Western Sydney town, there wasn't a lot of, opportunities to like learn how to songwrite and you can always like learn how to sing in different places, but songwriting is like a completely different skill. And I remember like when I was growing up and like singing around my community and singing at school and all these different things, like once I found that I didn't have to like, sing a different kind of way, like a way that was like someone else's story or, belt, I could actually like tell my own story and like make music that was me. And once I like clicked onto that, I was like, oh no, okay, like I get it. It's cool. Like I can actually like, make something different and something that's like uniquely myself. So yeah, it's gonna be really awesome to go to Newcastle and there's gonna be a panel there and there's like gonna be I'm gonna be running two sessions in that day. Like songwriting sessions, just I'm gonna be around for the whole day just giving any advice to anyone who like wants to hear any advice from me. Um, I know like when I got my start in the industry, a lot of it was due to APRA. And actually what happened was after I had won a Triple J Unearthed competition, they actually sent Thelma Plum to my school, which is like so funny.
Oh,
Yeah, so this is like Thelma Plum way back in the day. I think I would have been like 16 years old or something, or maybe like 15 or something like that. And she like just spoke about songwriting, and that was probably the first time I was introduced to just the concept of like how to write a song, and you know, like not just being like, I'm just gonna sing this song, this karaoke. I was like, I used to go on YouTube and watch karaoke and like sing along, and you know what I mean? So understanding that like there was an opportunity to be like, no, I can actually use my singing skills or use my like guitar skills or and create something. So yeah, I'm just gonna be all ears and all eyes.
Well, firstly, Newcastle, bit bigger than Wyong, so that bit
Yeah.
more exploring to be done, I think, in Newcastle.
They have a council
Secondly,
building too.
they do have a council
Nice.
and a police station as well. We've got one of those in Wyong,
Whoa.
so there's you know a lot of similarities. But we don't have a beach in Wyong. That's probably one of the drawbacks. We have a better football team, so
There
I had
we
to
go.
throw that in.
I had to fit that in.
I had to throw that in. But Thelma Plum, what an awesome person to sort of help shape, you know, a young future musician like yourself. Like, I
Yeah.
imagine, like, even at the time, but especially looking back on that, it's almost surreal that that sort of chance experience happened for you.
I know, right? Like it's so funny. There's like a photo of us, and I was like a little kid, and I'm like little teenagers are smiling and stuff. Yeah, but I don't know. I think like there is opportunities where you just like get to learn a new skill. You know, like when I look back, those were like one of those pivotal moments where like a part of my brain just like changed a little bit and was like it like kind of clicked onto something. So yeah, I'm really hoping that with these sessions, anyone who's like, you know, a songwriter, someone who's like even just a singer, someone who's just interested in music, like this is like so perfect for anyone, beginner or just like wanting to meet new people, create networks and community. So yeah, I would encourage literally like anyone to come through to this, and especially if you're like starting out in music. I think this would be like so awesome. Yeah.
And you mentioned before like something quite interesting, and we ask these questions a lot, but we'll preface it by saying that Cam and I, neither of us are singers, and we don't really make music of our own. But it is really interesting to kind of understand. Okay, there is the period where, as an artist emerging, you realize you can sing, and you've got this propensity and this talent, and there's something that you want to. But then translating that into, okay, how do I write a song? Because I have those
Yeah.
thoughts as a non-musician. How do you write a song? And some of the way music is structured, and like your songs are an example of it, how you actually build that seems like so foreign to the layman. So could you
Yeah.
like not explain how to write a song, but what that moment was like for
Songwriting
you?
workshop right now.
Yeah, how long have you got? But where that kind of moment flicked for you, and maybe what people can expect from these sessions going into it, if you are maybe a musician who might not have that experience or understanding of, yeah, where do I start with the bones of a track?
Yeah. Um, Starting off like I guess singing wise, I would just like to say I'm the kind of person and like I'm a very strong believer that anyone can sing. Like when I first started singing, I no, honestly, it is like a muscle that you can like train. I don't know, like maybe it might not sound as good, but I do believe that like everyone has like a singing voice. Like if you practice and you like learn how to like control it, anyone can sing. Because I'm telling you, I did not sound good. When I look at videos from when I was a kid, I was like, oh, no, everyone was lying to me. I was like surrounded by yes people being like, yes. No, it sounded bad. It sounded so bad. But it was one of those things where you like, when you're passionate about it, you just like, you love it so much, you just practice and you get good at things eventually. In terms of songwriting, for me, like, songwriting has always been something that is like a very personal thing. Like, it's not always this case, but when I first started writing music, like, I have always like turned to music as something that's almost like therapeutic and like, you know, like I would write about things going on in my life or things that are like, you know, happening at the moment. Like, oh my God, I can't believe like this person said this to me. Like, it's in my brain and now I can like have a place to put these thoughts and these emotions. You know what I mean? So, yeah, when I write songs, I usually start with like melodies. Like, you know, when you're just like humming random things to yourself, it's like that, but like you're just doing it on top of like something. I don't know if that on top of like guitar melody or like pianos, and it can be like gibberish and then just slowly turn into like a story. And it's kind of like it's kind of like you're painting a story or like you're telling a story, but you're just singing. I don't know how else to explain it, but yeah, there's like a lot of like simpler ways to put it, but yeah, yeah, how to explain it.
Well, coming from a musician, if you're saying that it's a muscle that you can train. I will back you on that, but my personal experience is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And I think Eamon shares a similar experience to myself. Not that we've really tried to sing seriously, really at all in our lives, but any time that we have, I remember hearing someone say one of the most, it might have been a group of actors or someone, and they were saying the most or like nerve-wracking, embarrassing thing was someone say, sing, but like mean it, like sing properly. And
I'd burst into tears if I was
yeah,
asked
they're like,
that.
no, actually, it was the Smartless
Sing
podcast,
properly.
Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and those guys. I was talking about it, and they were just like, no, it's the most terrifying thing.
Yeah, being told you're like, I'm singing properly this time. Bad. Yeah, I've had that kind of happen to me. People are like, just project your voice, and I'm like, this is as loud as it gets. I'm sorry.
Turn up your mic.
Yes,
I'm like, yeah, just
stop
turn
it.
your headphones up. Like, yeah.
Do you still get like you're going to be gracing the Love Lane stage this weekend, but when you do shows, do you have those nerves of that nature anymore, or is it kind of gone because you're so well tuned now to it and you've got so much practice?
It kind of depends on the situation. Like sometimes I'm not nervous. Like it's like sometimes I am, and then sometimes I'm not. Like kind of depends on the situation. A lot of the time, I think like nerves stems from like caring a lot and wanting to do a good job and like wanting to make sure like you impress people, like you want people to have a good time. Do you know what I mean? And like I feel like for me, I always really want to put on a good show for people around. So when I do get nervous, it's always because I care a lot. But I mean, like, doesn't mean I don't know what's going on, but it's always like, it's more just like, I want to do a really good job. So sometimes, hopefully, I don't get nervous for this show. Hopefully, it's a good show.
I'm positive that it will be, and we've shared this. I've shared this on the podcast before, but one year at Variety Night at high school, I was in 3 sort of performances. One of them, I played a ukulele. It was just a bit of fun in a group. The second one, I ran around the stage in the hall with my mate playing the tambourine, and then the final one. And at that moment, I thought, oh, I'm not nervous. Like maybe it's just after years of performing on stage, I'm starting to get used to it. And then I got up for the third performance and I was playing guitar, and it was like the instrument that I was meant to be good at and an instrument that, I wanted to impress people with. And I got on stage and I was like, oh, I'm nervous. And it's because you care, right? It's because you have, you want to
Yes,
do a good job, you want to
exactly.
do well. Ukulele, tambourine, there was no pressure on that. It didn't matter if I, made a mistake or I was slightly offbeat. Whatever, like there were more people on stage, it was a bigger thing. But with this, it was literally, I think 3 or 4 of us on stage. I was pretty much the solo guitarist until one of the other guys came in a bit later on in the track. So I can relate to that experience for sure.
Yeah, except it's
Very
just
different
me,
level.
just
I
yapping.
should also clarify, very different level.
No, I feel like, yeah, it's the same experience, completely same feeling and everything. So, yeah, you get it.
And what can people expect from this Love Lane show? Like we will get to your music in just a moment, but you've kind of done this like really awesome transition into like this unique style of mixing your R&B roots and your soul roots and dance, which I just think you've nailed. So I'm super interested
Thank
to know
you.
how if you can describe it, that translates into a live show.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's a tricky question. Like a lot of the time with I guess a lot of R&B and hip hop artists like commonly tour with DJs, and my show is one of those shows where it's me and trusty DJ Nicole Tanya, and it's just so much fun to play shows. So it's been like really interesting to kind of like go from playing like R&B songs and then now playing like dance songs, and it's just been so much fun. So I think like coming into this set, it's gonna be cool. I'm gonna have like, a few more elements, a few more people on stage with me, some backing vocals, and a guitarist with me. And we're gonna get Cameron to come play guitar too. um,
Yes, don't get
two
nervous, Cam.
guitarists this time, and then he's gonna do a solo. No, no, yeah, but it's gonna be like I feel like my shows with music, and especially like when music is your job, it's like something that is your passion becomes something that's work. It's always like important to me to still have fun with those things, and I guess my show is just a really playful show. It's just like a lot of fun. I like love performing and I love playing the dance music, and the dance music is like the best out of all the music that I've like played. It's the one that I love playing the most, like the dance tracks, the drum and bass tracks, and just like being able to dance. And yeah, it's just so much fun. So yeah, and a bit of dancing. You'll see a little bit of dancing on stage. It's gonna be cool. But yeah, a very playful show, I would say.
I'm not dancing if you get me on stage. That's all I'll
You're gonna, hey,
I'll play the guitar, but I'll do like an old man sway if you're lucky.
yeah.
It's not going to be much more than that. Very little stage presence. In fact, when I was writing that performance, I was sitting on a stool because it was like an acoustic performance. So it
You're like,
matched, but I'm not wowing people with stage presence is what I'll
Mate, you
throw
can
out.
still dance.
I can tap my foot.
Yeah.
hey, that's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. As Amy said, we will get to your music, but I also want to just go back quickly. So you've got Samoan heritage.
Yeah.
Was that like a big influence as well to you learning how to sing and for you growing up in that family? Like
Yeah.
traditionally a lot of Samoan families are just close units. There's a lot of singing and there's a lot of harmony throughout. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah. Well, no one in my family actually sings, which is like kind of like that goes against the whole stereotype of being like an islander. I can't be like, yeah, my family is like a full choir. Yeah, no, all of my family cannot sing except my mum, who claims she can sing, and I'm yet to hear it, but I believe her, because I don't want her to get angry at me. But yes, I believe her. Yeah, growing
She's
up,
just
I
taking
guess,
credit for the singing gene
yeah,
passing
she's
down to you.
like 100%. She's like, I was in a choir. Well, I do think the singing gene um, does come from like my Islander side and also like my Aboriginal side. I feel like that's just like in the nature. But yeah, I didn't grow up with my family singing, but I did grow up around a lot of music, and especially being from Campbelltown, I feel like that area is so multicultural, and it's so like rooted in like this hip hop kind of culture, hip hop and R&B. And when I'd go to school, it's like I didn't even grow up knowing what Triple J was. All everyone listened to was like this radio station called The Edge, which is now Cater, which is so funny. It's like everyone, if you got played on Cater or like The Edge back then, that was like you made it. You know what I mean? Like if you made it onto the hip hop R&B show. So a lot of the influences, like just being in school and stuff, were just like Frank Ocean, Destiny's Child, Alicia Keys, like that's all the stuff people were playing, and I feel like that definitely had a big influence on just the music that I liked, and then also the way I would sing and melodies that would like come naturally to me. And also I did go to school with a lot of Islanders, so that also is like the crossover too, for sure.
Yeah, because you mentioned that, and this is also why I think you're an excellent choice for the regional sessions that are being held by APRA AMCOS, because you mentioned you've grown up in Campbelltown where you felt like opportunities were limited, and it wasn't until Thelma
Yeah.
Plum came to your school where you thought, oh, hang on, this can be turned into something there. So the fact that, you've had your experience in your upbringing and, what your experience through there in Campbelltown, and now you're helping the next generation and the next crop of people and coming through, no matter how established or emerging they are, so they can, you have that grand experience, which I think, it counts almost twice as much in that sense.
Yeah.
Like you're talking to someone, I've lived it, I understand it, more than someone going, yeah, look, there's always opportunities, yada, yada. But until you've actually been dying for an opportunity yourself, you don't really understand it as much.
Yeah, for sure. It's so crazy. I have been like going back to Campbelltown a lot recently, and like I played a show there for the first time ever. Like I mean, not the first time I played when I was like younger and stuff, but for the first time as like Becca Hatch, as like my artist self, and it was crazy. Like the art center there had like really helped put something together, but it was crazy how there was like no live music venues. There wasn't really any like creative hubs or like studios, and I was just like getting flashbacks of like when I was growing up and starting to like write music and just like wanting to pursue music. It was like I would always have to travel to the city, or I would have to like figure out, you know what I mean? Like I would really have to finesse my way to like create opportunities. And coming from like, a low socioeconomic area, it's like my mom was like working all the time, like if it wasn't for my mom driving me places or like, you know what I mean, like taking a day off work or something, which is not really always like an option for people, you know what I mean, from like middle class areas. It's like you can't just, get your parents to take you everywhere. yeah, it's just like it's just crazy. And I'm sure like a lot of people have shared that experience in like many different areas and different ways. So yeah, it's gonna be cool to like chat to people for sure.
Yeah, it is so crazy as well because it's obviously such a like a hotbed of fantastic culture and I suppose far more multicultural than a lot of other areas of Australia. And as a result, we get such awesome music that kind of deviates from
Yeah,
what we traditionally expect Australian music to sound like. In not really
yeah,
anymore,
for
but
sure.
I suppose there's like that placeholder is what you would expect. And so much
Yeah,
good stuff comes out of it. I spent some time at FBI Radio, and so much music coming from around your area and that area was just so fantastic and so unique. And to not have the infrastructure, I suppose, to support so many of the artists and so much of the culture that comes out of there just feels like, it just feels wrong, basically. But of course, these are
yeah.
structural issues, and they're much bigger than the fact that we can point to all the talent there. So, are there initiatives or community initiatives or even government initiatives in that area that you're aware of that are helping to address that problem, or is it kind of something that's destined to continue?
I know in Campbelltown, like I'm not sure if you've heard of Elfresh, but he's a really awesome artist from Southwest Sydney. He actually runs an initiative with Campbelltown Arts Centre, which is called Conscious. Um, and basically they have like each year, or like I think it's like a season. I don't know if it's a full year, but they bring in like a group of artists and they provide them funding and like help them work towards their goals. And I think it's like artists from Western Sydney in different areas and like the work that he's done to like really support artists has been like insane. And I remember I was like in one of the first like cohorts of Conscious, and he basically like really helped teach me about the industry and like help provide me the tools to like go to my first ever big sound, which was like a massive thing for me when I first was starting music, because like big sound is just like a place to go where you can actually network with people. And being from like smaller town where it's like, you don't have those opportunities, it's like being provided like the funding and the support to do that. It was like mind blowing being around that many artists and like that many people. So I know that Conscious is a really awesome work. Like, I'm not really sure too much like anywhere else or about like too many like government initiatives, but I also know like Street Uni has been doing a lot of awesome work in Western Sydney. Like they have studios out and like I'm pretty sure in like Mount Druitt and a bunch of different areas, which has been really awesome. But yeah, I'm not too sure, but I do think like there's so much work that could be, done. So I'm really looking forward to like the next few years and hopefully I can go back and give back to my community for sure.
Yeah, and like that area is booming at the moment. I've got family down there, and we went down there just before Christmas, and there is so many, like it's packed. Like the traffic down there was insane. But you got a Nando's. I'm so envious that you've got a Nando's
Yeah,
in
like what
Newcastle.
the I know, I like when I went back, I was like, what the hell? It's so developed here. Like
Yeah.
compared to when I was growing up at least. There was like a massive, there's like a cinema there that's called the Merrick Street. It's like one of those cinemas, like if you know, you know, growing up, the movies was like $6 to get in, and it was like, it was like the best. I mean, you might not like have the most comfortable seat. Maybe you might get a little bit of a neck or back. I don't know. But $6 for a movie, like that's so good. And I went past like the other day and there was like a full massive like apartment building with like LED like strips on it. And I was like, what the hell? It's crazy. So yeah, it's cool to see it like growing and stuff. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and it speaks to the potential of the region as well, and why the investment in music and arts down there would be a very
Yeah,
wise investment.
for sure. And not even just Campbelltown, I think just like all of Western Sydney and just smaller towns and regional towns in general, so yeah.
Preaching to the
Yeah.
choir.
And we have teased it for a bit, but let's get into your music because you've been around a while now, but you kind of burst onto the scene via a Triple J Unearthed competition with 2560. Was it? That was it, the first one? Was it that the track?
Okay, so this is the backstory, right? I won this comp, and the song you will never find anywhere. I've removed
Oh,
it off every single thing, but it was a song called "Down for Me" that I wrote. I wrote it when I was like 16 years old. I went by like a different name, Rebecca Hatch. Yeah, and 2560 was like the first release as Becca Hatch, but I don't blame you for not finding the songs because it's like one of those things where it's like I did all my like, you know,
We'll do some
work
digging,
hard
see if we can bring it up.
You've done well then, because usually, especially with those competitions, they're harder to kind of, delete because they're tied to the competitions. But you've done very well, because that's
I'm
what
like,
in my
I
head
will
I had
hide everything.
I had 2560 associated with that, but that's how well you've done. You've replaced it even in my memory. So congratulations
Hey,
on that.
I need to just like I'm gonna start saying that's a song now. You've given me an idea. I'm gonna be like, yes, 2560, yeah. I shouldn't have corrected you. I should have just said, yeah, that was the one.
Change history. But you came up through that, and well, through the song that we shall not name, and 2560 I suppose is the one in my head that I remember so much, and like it still holds up to this day. It's a fantastic track. And then
Thank
it's been
you.
so cool and interesting watching you progress, and you touched on it before, into this R&B dance fusion. I don't know what the best word to describe it is, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, I think of you as
Yeah.
this fantastic production, and quite unique in sound, and how you combine those. It's just like, I just think it's a very, very great fusing and melding of two different genres. So was that somewhere you always saw yourself going, or is it somewhere you found yourself very comfortably landing?
I think it's definitely somewhere I found myself like comfortably landing for sure. I think as like making music when I'm like 16 years old versus like making music now in like my early 20s, it's always going to be a little bit different. And I think like growing up and like seeing my, like like my, what am I trying to say? Just like full disassociated for a second, but seeing the things I like change, you know what I mean? Like my taste in music and just the things that I was like listening to, just seeing that change over time. Like I feel like naturally as an artist, it's completely normal to just slightly like go towards a different lane. And yeah, I always like my roots are in R&B. I feel like you always can kind of hear it no matter what. Like even the other day I was in the studio and I was like writing a song and it was like full giving like alternative like guitar, and no matter what I was doing it just still sounded like an R&B song. I think it's just in like the voice and like the melodies and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, like it's something, it's still in the roots. But I think as I got older and I started going out and experiencing life a little bit more, and like I dare I say like COVID and like being stuck inside and then being able to like go out again and being around a lot of people, I think like dance music became like a communal thing for me. Like being in, you know what I mean, like a boiler room style setting and having everyone like dance together when the drop comes in, it became like a positive thing. And when I would like think about all the memories I have with like dance music, it was always like really positive. So I think I kind of just like enjoyed wanting to make like dance music, and it made me like kind of fall in love with music again in another way. And it made me feel like music was exciting, and playing shows. I was looking forward to playing shows so I could play the dance music and dance with other people and like share those experiences and like DJ and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play this song, and it's like a remix version. Like that felt like so much fun because I felt like it made me feel connected with people. So yeah, I don't know, it just felt like it kind of like comfortably went into that kind of lane. So yeah.
And then you dropped an acoustic version of the album as well. So talk us through your thinking behind that.
Yeah, so um there was a show that I did. It was for Vivid, and it was there's like a room in the Sydney Opera House, which is like a smaller room. Um, I forgot what it's called. I think it was like no, I can't even think of the name, but they have a smaller room in the Opera House. It's like maybe like 100 something people. It's not too big at all. And I played it for Vivid, and we had like a band for the show. And what they had done is before I dropped the project, they like made the band version of the show to play live. And as I was like performing some of the songs, it was like a completely different rendition. It was like slower versions and like more intimate. And as I was like singing this, like my manager had come up to me after and was like, "That was like so beautiful." I think, you know, hearing it as like a dance version and then hearing the songwriting like stripped back, it made me understand the song a lot more and like made me feel a lot more connected to you in like that kind of way. Like I really understood and I felt the story. So there was a few songs that I after putting out the project was like, I would love to just like do a stripped back version of these. So we ended up doing Crash, which was like one of the that kind of is already like a ballad on that song and then on the project, and then also this other song called One of One. And Then with Crash, we like got my mum to translate the song into Samoan, and it was my mum and my uncle, which was a very funny experience. And yeah, then we have another version which like lives on YouTube, and it's yeah the Samoan version of Crash, which is really sweet and awesome.
So your mum is a singer.
Yeah, I guess she is a singer.
That's really. Did you find that the songs, even for you, maybe took on a different meaning by stripping it back acoustically?
Yeah, for sure. I think like hearing Crash and like hearing One of One, like I think a lot of the focus was on like the production and kind of like taking it back a little bit. I don't know. It felt like a lot more like reflective. So yeah, I definitely felt like a little bit more in touch with the song for sure.
And beautiful that were able to kind of mix that in with your culture and your heritage too, which is super unique. So everyone go check that out on
Mm.
YouTube if you want to hear it. And then that album Mayday, you did drop it last year. How's that sitting with you now? You're in 2025, but you've had a bit of breathing space between it. A fantastic album, and from the outside looked like it was very, very well received. So how are you reflecting on it now?
Yeah, it feels like it's been a lot longer than that, I think, because like it takes so long sometimes to like finish a project and then release it. Like the project was done at the start, or kind of like towards the start of last year, and it didn't get released till like later in the year. So I've had a full like you know what I mean, over 6 months of sitting with this project. So I've already lived the journey of this project and then got over it, and then it came out. So it's like so I'm like, yeah, by the time now, I'm like, oh, what's Mayday? I don't even, yeah, okay, yeah, cool. Because I've like really lived with it. So yeah, I think like it, yeah, it's been such an awesome experience and having people like um, send messages, be like, you know, I really love this song, or like, this song really helped me get through like this time. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just been really awesome to like put it out and finally like have that stress off my mind and um, yeah, just see how like people have responded to it, which has been awesome. And um, it still feels like sometimes when you put out music, you're like, and then after, you're like, oh no, I don't know why I did that. But I have like not felt that kind of way about this, and maybe because I had a bit more time to think about it. But yeah, it feels really good.
It's a very
Very
common
good.
experience from the artists that we speak to that by the time the album or single or whatever it is out into the world, they are well and truly past it. They are over it. But at the same time, they need to try and promote it and act really
Yeah,
excited by it because everyone, their fans are new and it's new to them and it's exciting to them. But they're like, oh, I've been listening to 5 different mixes of this over the last 2 weeks. Finessing this. I'm sick of hearing my voice do this, whatever the case is. So it's certainly a relatable experience. I want to
yeah.
know, how do you see, obviously, Hottest 100 Countdown recently, a lot of discourse around not just, the lack of Australian artists, but also and I got the sense that the type of music that was charting quite high on the countdown. There was a little discourse around that as well. As someone who's deep into the electronic and R&B worlds, what's your take on how those genres are placed globally and also nationally here across Australia?
Well, I guess like starting with R&B, it's kind of crazy because I feel like R&B is like a really popular genre here. It's like you could see like SZA came, she sold out like arena shows. Everyone went through. It was like a massive thing. Same as hip hop. I feel like hip hop is like a really like supported genre here. There's a community for it. There's a crowd for it. But it's kind of crazy how like I feel like hip hop's a little bit different now. It's had its moment, but especially with R&B, like we have so much awesome like local talent, and like it feels like there's like not I don't know if it's like the infrastructure here. There's like a lack of support or something. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of find it a little bit sad that sometimes we don't really like turn to listen to like local R&B acts or local like hip hop acts. So I feel like hip hop, yeah, as I said, hip hop had its moment when like drill came back and like really like came back with that genre, which was so awesome to see like how the community around that kind of like came back and everyone was like, yeah, oh, it's hip hop, it's fucking sick again. But yeah, I don't know, like I hope R&B has that moment and yeah, I don't know, like especially with the Hottest 100. I'm not sure how many like Australian acts even charted. I'm not sure if you guys have the stats there, but
We've actually covered it in depth, and yeah, it was like 18 Australian. Is that right, Cam? 18 Australian acts, 26
Like,
Australian songs
isn't
out of
that
100,
Yeah.
which was very, very
isn't that
poor.
crazy? Like, I don't know. I do believe that like Triple J did play a lot of Australian music, but makes me think like, you know, what is lacking? Why is there like a disconnect here? Like, people going to live shows and you know what I mean? Like, but can we like blame people for not going to live shows because things are always getting cancelled and like, you know what I mean? And how we like what can we do to support our local acts and artists more, you know what I mean? So yeah, I guess it's a question for everyone. I don't know, but I do think like there's a lot of work that can be done for sure.
We poured over this a fair bit, and yeah, we were left with probably more questions than answers, I suppose. But like, yeah, it goes deep. But we do know, and I wonder if you could maybe speak to this. Is there like a for things like the Hottest 100 specifically, is there like a voting, are people from the R&B community, for example, less likely to vote in something like the Triple J's Hottest 100 because R&B is its own community and maybe doesn't get as much of a spotlight as people would like? Because there, as you said, there is so much fantastic music, and we kind of spoke about it earlier, coming in that world, R&B, hip hop, soul, those kind of worlds. There's so much coming out of there, but and Triple J definitely does its part. But is it maybe just the fact that those people who are fans of that genre aren't necessarily those who are going to vote, and it then becomes a bit self-fulfilling, unfortunately.
Like I think so, but also like I think if that was the case, like I don't know, I think people would be actually pulling up to like R&B shows and stuff. I just don't think there's like the numbers, you know what I mean, to like support an artist to even like make it against like, you know what I mean, like more popular genres here in Australia. I don't think there's like enough people who really support local R&B. Like if all the people who really loved local R&B like voted, I don't even think it would make it into like, you know what I mean, the hottest 100. I just don't think there's like that strong of a community for it. Or just like I don't know, like a large amount of people. Yeah, which is a shame. I just think it's like maybe it's just about, like exposure. I don't know if like there's a lot of like the local mass of people who like listen to music or like commercial radio. Maybe they're not exposed to local R&B, which I think might be the case. I do think like there's heaps of people who listen to Triple J who know like more local acts for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like yeah, maybe it's like a mass amount, but I don't know. I'm not a scientist, guys. I don't
We're turning to
I'm
you
just
for
like
answers.
just talking from my experience. I don't know, just said that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned commercial radio, and I had a similar thought in comparison. Please correct me if you think I'm wrong with this, but it feels like commercial radio to maybe, and I know that rock and indie rock is a lot more popular and commonplace, locally here in Australia, but it almost feels like when we're talking at a commercial station level, Triple M, for example, will always play rock from the 80s and the 90s, but they don't really support new, rock artists until they're already big enough. And it feels like the R&B scene might have a similar thing with commercial radio. Like R&B Fridays was always a throwback. Let's listen to some of the best
Yeah,
R&B from the 90s and the noughties.
yeah, for
But it
sure.
was never trying to showcase emerging R&B from Australia. Is that a fair comparison in your opinion, or am I way off base?
No, I think that is fair, and I think also like another like just having another thought now, I think a lot of the people who maybe do now, like who would be fans of local R&B, maybe wouldn't find their music from commercial radio. Maybe they wouldn't actually like, you know what I mean? Maybe they're going to social media and like in TikTok and more short form or streaming and like playlists to like, you know what I mean, find new music. I don't know if like the people who would actually listen to it maybe would even listen to Triple J or even listen to like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, there's like a lot of different thoughts here, but who
Mhm.
knows what the answer is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
To your point, Eamon, with the voting and the countdown, I would think that if the community was there, that they would vote in their numbers as almost like an underdog mentality. Let's get a local artist into the countdown. And I think maybe the heavy music scene has a similar mentality around it. They go, right,
Mm,
there's not many heavy metal artists. We know they're not going to get number one, but let's get him into the countdown. And they all vote in numbers. And, there's fewer of them than, pop, for example, but they all band
yeah.
together as a community and vote as much as they can to get those artists into the countdown. And to your point, Becca, maybe that community just isn't really here in Australia as much.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and I think that we just need more avenues for exposure because as we've said, maybe the communities are small, but there's also no shortage of fantastic music from across the spectrum of all different types of genres that is out there
Yeah.
and being made and being released every week. It's just there's less and less avenues for that local music specifically to find its way to local ears, and we are more and more
Yeah.
likely to hear stuff from overseas or the overseas equivalent. Where it's like, well, there's like I can't remember what it is. One of the music websites does this like for fans of this big international act. Why don't you try this local act who's similar in style but is local and is awesome? And I feel like we just need something like that on a massive scale, or just to get
Yeah,
those
for
avenues
sure.
of exposure out there so that people can find it
I
because
agree.
people would love it. I think it's just a lot of people don't even know it's there.
Yeah, I agree. I think like there definitely is like communities here for it. Like, I just did a tour supporting Tinashe. Those were like that show sold out like instantly. Like Enmore, she sold out, Farm instantly. Like Kaylani is touring and like those shows are selling. I think Mahalia was here. Who else can I think of? Like SZA was here. Like she played massive like arena shows. Like there's an audience here that does, you know what I mean, like consume R&B music. Think about like people who like Tyler, anyone who likes SZA, Tyler, Kehlani, like any of that. Like they're people who definitely would like local Australian music. But I think it is just about the like actually getting the music to their ears for sure. But there's a community here. It's just, yeah, they're just not listening to local music yet, and it's not fault. It's just about figuring out a way to get it there for sure.
Yeah, and we're lucky to have artists like yourself that are producing that music and gaining that attention and hopefully piece by piece. And we spoke about the songwriting sessions that you will be doing as part of the APRA AMCOS regional sessions. Those are those little avenues, those defining moments you could have an artist coming through or an emerging artist coming through that you're speaking to that could go on and then, represent another fantastic person in that space down the track. So I suppose these are the
Yeah,
building blocks and the things are happening there. We can just be a bit impatient and yeah, I suppose sometimes it feels like you are
yeah,
fighting against the global TikTok, Spotify algorithms that don't seem to help Australian artists all that often.
yeah, for sure. I think like yeah, when I look back at when I first started music, there was definitely people who were like setting down the foundational work just so that like I could even be able to play shows and play gigs and have people actually come out to shows. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different artists who are like even doing that. So it is just a process. It's like as you were saying. So gotta be patient, we'll get there.
Yeah, and we could come full circle moment this weekend at Love Lanes as well, because I'm sure there'll be plenty of young people on the audience there who will see you on stage performing, and because we don't really see a lot of R&B, hip hop, or electronic music on the Central Coast, so I think having someone like yourself on stage, I think you might engage and influence a lot of young people in the crowd as well, and we could have a full circle moment where we're talking to them in 10 years' time and they're going, oh, I remember I was watching Becca Hatch on stage perform as, you had
Oh,
Thermoplum
yeah,
coming to your
sick.
school. It could be a really cool full circle moment.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Like, yeah, that would be so awesome.
Let's get it happening. So we will let you go in just a second, Becca. You've been so generous with your time. But before we do, apart from Love Lanes, apart from these regional sessions, what is on your horizon for 2025? Are there any teasers that people can get about music that might be on the way or touring that might be on the way? Or is it all very tight lips this early in the year?
Well, coming up, I am playing Yours and Ours Festival, which is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, first music festival of this year, which is going to be cool, and a lot more shows. Right now, like I've just been spending like the first start of this year just like in full creative mode, which like feels so awesome to be writing music again. And yeah, working on new music for this year. So definitely new music this year. Like, I'm not sure exactly what it will be yet, or if I can say what it will be yet. But yeah, definitely new music for sure, and just shows. So yeah, if there's any shows that anyone wants to come to, definitely come through and come to Love Lanes. Oh yeah, that's 2025. Love Lanes, let's go.
Absolutely. It all starts this weekend at Love Lanes Festival in the Wyong Town Centre. The concert itself will be along Allison Road. There will be plenty of road closures in place. Traffic's normally pretty bad. Parking's normally pretty bad too. So get there early enough, and hopefully there's still food going by the time you get there to enjoy Becca Hatch performing on stage. Also get to Newcastle as well if you're an artist and you want to be part of these regional sessions as well. The details for that will all be in our show notes, as well as Becca's Instagram page as well. But Becca, thank you so much for your time. I'll get my management in touch and see if we can organise me joining you on stage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks. Just let me know.
And check out that council building, all right?
Yeah. Add it to the list of to-do things. Yeah. Number 1, council building. Yeah. On there. Number 2, reply to Cameron's management. Yeah.
Also named Cameron, coincidentally. Thank you so much, Becca. That was good
You've already
fun.
got the direct line.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll catch you guys at Love Lanes if you guys are around.